do these every day, and during the weekdays at least, try and get as much as we can out of this. The early rounds. It's going to be fun. We had a great time at the game last night. My cousins came down. We had a blast. My buddy was there. There was about 8 of us. Thanks to DraftKings for the tickets and everything. Not really sure how many people we're going to get coming in for these little shows here, but I did want to make sure that we try to do what we can to bring you guys the most content we can, especially while we have a little bit of a down, break. We only have football going on for me until basketball starts back up again. So thought we would talk about some stuff here. My initial take on this is I think that you just want to, there's plenty of spots to attack that are low ownership. So I'm just going to list off some players that I would be sprinkling in. I'm not playing a ton just in the interest of, total transparency, but I personally, I really like, I'm just going to make sure and update my spreadsheets here. Sorry. I really think that there's some guys to really like with some power upside who are going to be basically unowned on this slate. And I think that's a really good way to get a little bit different. For me, I like the White Sox side actually a little bit against McCullers. I don't mind if you want to use McCullers too. Like we have 2 games to choose from. All of these pitchers I have rated pretty similarly, with Erod being the lowest rated, but probably the lowest owned also. And he's been really good the second half of the season. And I think we can take advantage of that. I think you're going to get low ownership on Tim Anderson. I think you're going to get low ownership on Moncada. And I think you're going to get low ownership on Gavin Sheets. I like Gavin Sheets. I'll play the home run game and try and see if we can squeeze one out of him. So that would be something I think you can do to get different on this slate right off the bat. Then I'm going to go through each team and say the guys who I like the most, how to get different. I really think you can really make an argument for every pitching case, and I have them fairly similar. So I'm going to try and get different with my hitters. All right. So on the Houston side of things, I think Gurriel is going to be low owned. I think Kyle Tucker will be low owned. I think Carlos Correa will be low owned. And I think Jake Myers will be low owned, along with Maldonado probably as well. That whole part of the Houston stack, no one's going to really go for now. I know Altuve is going to be popular. It is hard to argue against him as it being a logical option. I love Jordan Alvarez, and I like Bregman. But like I said, if I just play Moncada instead of Bregman, you get much lower ownership. I think I would side with Brantley and spending down. I think this is a fine day to leave money on the table, and that's what I would be looking for you guys to do. Oh, it looks like she's just popping in right now. What's up, man?
Hey, what's going on?
So I was just running through each team and talking about just low owned players that I like, who's going to be low owned, and then who I think is going to be who I think is viable.
Let me go backwards. So in a 2-game slate, we don't have to. Are we allowed to play relievers in a 2-game slate, or that's a little too fishy?
I think today it would be extremely fishy because you're barely saving anything. You don't need the savings.
Yeah.
So you're. And all of these guys, like I think that you'd be looking at Boston probably as the most likely to go to the reliever, or Tampa Bay, but I don't see that as being particularly likely. And they could put up, sure, you could get a reliever, but even if they're hot and they put up 12 fantasy points or something, it doesn't, I think maybe next game on Saturday where Baz is pitching, there's an outside chance you might be able to see a long relief out of a Tampa Bay bullpen there. But I don't think it's extremely likely. And I don't think you're saving enough to where it's overly viable. For me today.
Next kind of like offbeat question. Is there any, we don't have a Tampa lineup yet, correct?
Correct.
So is there anything that we could or should do with this early game with that knowledge, or you know what I mean? Should we put certain guys in certain positions? Should we leave some flexibility? Like which positions, by the way, are up for whatchamacallit?
For Tampa Bay?
Yeah. What is there anything that's unsure, or anything that you're?
Yeah, there's a chance they might not play. They may not start with Kiermaier against a lefty. I think I think they will. But there's a chance that they don't start him against a lefty. Sometimes they do that.
And who would be the guy instead? Margot?
Margot will probably be in no matter what.
Okay.
So, but it's tough. I don't know for sure exactly what they're going to do, and I don't know. I mean, if Tampa's your main stacking team, it doesn't matter to me as much, because I think you're looking at playing. If you're going to play Tampa, I think you're looking at probably playing a pretty chalky lineup, which I would just rather get a little bit off of personally. So the guy who will play, I know Arozarena will play. I know Franco will play. I know Nelson Cruz will play. I like all those guys. They're all going to be popular. I will probably just sprinkle a little bit of them. And I think I'd be really shocked if Zunino didn't play. that those are the guys, and then Yandy Diaz. You assume. I think we have a pretty good feel for who their lineup's going to be. They just could do something with the Kiermaier spot or Brandon Lowe. That whole situation. That's really, I think the only one that's really up for debate.
Yeah, I just came in as you were talking about having a good idea to leave money on the table. I take it a step further. I think it's like almost impossible to fill out your salary. I mean,
Yeah.
it's well, you know what? I think they did that on purpose, kind of like
Well,
Christmas, like Christmas Day basketball pricing, so anybody can play and just play whoever they want. I mean,
yeah, right. Well, I'm not playing very big today, but I do have I'm just playing one major lineup, and then whatever I'll play the other ones. Some trickle down. But the one thing I can promise you is I'll play Rafael Devers in a lefty at 5.5K. Where he's going to be like low owned because of all the other third basemen on the slate. Mm-hmm. So I think Devers and Moncada would be my main third baseman just based on ownership alone. So that's the way you'd spend up. You'd and then you'd have to use Schwarber in a lefty matchup to still keep spending, and I think he's going to be lower owned. And I think Verdugo is the other one. So, but he's cheaper. But you're right; it is harder to spend up. So the thing I was trying to do is figure out, okay, so if I'm going to try and get the low owned options, I want the ones that are actually like legitimately great options. I think Devers is a terrific play today. I really think Devers and Moncada both stand out to me. I like the White Sox side of things a little bit. And I mentioned that I like Sheets as a first base option, and you're just going to forget about the money. Like you just got to forget about the extra 1,000 or whatever that you're leaving on the table. Don't force in another guy because he's more expensive unless he's going to be low owned. That should be the name of the game on this particular kind of slate.
What are you doing pitching wise?
What's that?
What are you doing with pitching?
I think I really think all of these guys are in very similar. I think you'd give the edge to McCullers probably ahead of the other ones, but I don't think that there's anything wrong with any of them, and I don't feel overly excited about any of them. I think McClanahan has probably the highest upside, even though he's probably got the highest he's probably got the highest range of outcomes, I guess. Erod, you could say that about too. I do really like a couple props. I like both McClanahan and Lance Lynn over their K props at 4.5. And then
that's really low, especially for Lynn, no?
Yeah, absolutely. But Houston doesn't strike out much, but still, you're right. It's crazy low. I really like this. I really want to just look. If I was playing a bunch of lineups today, I would be mixing and matching pitchers left and right because I don't think you're looking at a huge difference in general. I do think McCullers ends up being more owned than the other ones do. That's just my personal take. And I think that there is a lot of again, the way that's why I said before, I think probably before you got in there, the way I'm approaching this slate is what low ownership plays will I stick with? Gavin Sheets would be a priority play for me because of the low ownership. Rafael Devers would be a priority play for me because of the ownership. I think Gurriel and Kyle Tucker would be priority plays for me because of the ownership. And then Verdugo would be a priority play for me because of the ownership. But at the same time, I also like these guys for different reasons. So Verdugo and Kiki Hernandez, and you could say whatever you want about how, it doesn't matter how much experience, and sure, maybe some of that's true. These guys have tons of experience with the Dodgers. And I think there's something to the way they approach postseason at bats. Look, if there's the bases loaded, one of the guys was saying the other night, I think it was, even though A-Rod is kind of sucks as an announcer or whatever, says some stupid stuff, but he's like, the last guy you want to face on this team in some ways is Verdugo because he has so much experience and he's just you get him in these spots and he just has quality at bats. He'll have 9 pitch at bats. He'll work a walk. He'll work he'll get a little single in the gap or whatever. And he's got the little power upside. So I'm trying to combine the plays that I like with the low ownership factor, which is obviously what we want to do in general. But if you're just going to go out there and play Nelson Cruz, Wander Franco, Randy Arozarena, and then Altuve and Bregman, you're not going to win anything. It's just almost impossible. And I'm just picking all these guys and sort of leaving those guys out, only using like 3 or 4 guys on my lineups that are going to be above 10%. Because there is, from what I'm looking at, Sheets, and maybe you have something different, there's drastic ownership. Like there's guys who are going to be really, really low owned more than you'd usually get on a two game slate.
Well, that's what I said, the other day. I mean, there are guys that are just going to be less than 10% owned. They just are. I think this is even a more extreme. I think you're going to get like 10 guys at like 5% or less owned. Well, the point that you made was very well taken about the third base position. But, for example, look, in a vacuum, Bregman and the name escapes me are great third base plays, right? Mm-hmm. But between the two of them, whoever I'm thinking of, are going to eat up like 80% of the ownership, and you can get like Moncada For example, at really, it's a
Mhm.
freaking baseball game, man. And who's to say he doesn't hit one, And who was the other third baseman? Bregman, who was a good player. No, I forget.
Devers.
Right. No, right.
Yeah, no. I think it's crazy that the guy who's the best hitter at the position probably is going to be the lowest owned player at the position.
Yeah, but who are the third bases? Moncada. Who's the Tampa guy? Diaz, he third base?
It'll be Yandy, and he's going to be popular too. So people are going to stack Tampa.
Right.
Is my guess. I think you're going to get the lowest ownership on Devers and Moncada at totally two different price ranges. So maybe it would be good for us to go through the positions because, like I said, you could make an argument every which way for pitching. The way I'm leaning a little bit is, I thought Erod was going to be lower owned, so I was going to play him. But I think that McCullers and McClanahan, they're all close for me. I don't really have a huge take on the pitchers of one over another. When I thought McCullers was going to be significantly more owned, I would have just happy to get away from it and play the White Sox. But I don't think we're going to get enough of I think it's going to be spread out enough, so we don't need to do that. But maybe we can talk through each position and talk about, there's the chalky play. Like, if we go start with catcher, you've got Zunino at 3,700 and Grandal at 4,500, who will eat up all the ownership. Why can't they go for 4? And why can't we just play Mejia? You know what I mean? Assuming that it is Mejia. That would be weird because that means they're DHing Zunino. So I don't know for sure if you could do the Mejia thing, but you could play Vasquez and Maldonado. I probably will pay up at catcher for one of the Grandal and Zunino because I want to get different in other positions where I feel like there's some real upside for guys. And I don't think that there's as much upside. But at the same time, those two guys go 0 for tonight. And then you've got Maldonado, not that you need the savings, who gets, maybe he gets 5 fantasy points and you're way different than the field,
So who do you think? So who do you think is going to be the highest owned of the catchers?
I think it'll be Grandal and Zunino. I think Zunino probably is slightly higher, but I don't know. Actually, it'd probably be close.
I have them about the same.
Yeah, probably about the same. I still think that's a place where I'm probably going to eat the chalk because I think they both have multi-home run upside.
And who's catching and the Red Sox? You don't have Pulick. You have
Vasquez is projected to be catching, but we don't know for sure. It could be Pulick.
And catching for Houston is Maldonado.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have. I like. I mean, they're all the same to me. You know what I mean? Like you said.
Right. So there's positions where I'm going to get different. Catching is not particularly one of them.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that. So let's look at the other positions then. So first base. I mean, my favorite first base play, according to what I look at, is Dahlbeck.
Yeah, I have no problem with Dahlbeck at all. I feel like maybe I actually think Sheets is the better play, just because of the ownership. You're going to get Dahlbeck probably in the teens of ownership, and I think Sheets is going to be literally like 2% owned, 1% owned.
Yeah, I have him at like 6%. Yeah.
Yeah, somewhere in that range, and he's got plenty of power. They're very similar hitters, with an immense amount of power. Dahlbeck gets to play a little bit more than Sheets does. There's a chance for Sheets to get pinch hit for if they bring in a lefty out of the bullpen. But you're kind of, McCullers might be going on away. So I actually like Sheets, and I like Gurriel. I think this is a great slate. You can play Gurriel, and if people are going to play all these other Houston bats, why not get a little different with your Houston guys? So I would only play Gurriel or Sheets at first base or Dahlbeck, and just skip the ownership on Schwarber and Abreu.
What about second base? Well, I mean, honestly, what you're probably supposed to do. I mean, again, this is usually not the way I look at it, but you're supposed to probably just play Arroyo, right? I mean,
yeah.
Altuve is going to be like 70% owned, right? I mean,
yeah. So another place where, I think that you can get reasonable-ish ownership on Brandon Lowe, and I like Kike a lot. I don't mind this. If you're going to play anybody else, I would play whoever is playing second base for whoever's eligible for the White Sox, which would be probably Cesar Hernandez or Lurie Garcia. I don't think Cesar Hernandez is actually in the lineup today. I guess it'd be Lurie Garcia. I actually think that the right thing though to do might be on this one to eat a little bit, either play Brandon Lowe or Kike, or Altuve. I'll eat a little bit more chalk at second base today, personally. Second base and catcher are my most chalky positions. because on third base, I'm only going to play Moncada and Devers. I'm not going to touch Yandy Diaz or Bregman.
Who do you like at shortstop?
I mean, if I was just going to eat chalk, I would take the Wander Franco, but just give me Carlos Correa. Give me Carlos Correa and Tim Anderson are both excellent plays. Bogarts, like those guys are all going to be so much lower owned, I think, than Franco is going to be. I think Correa is probably the route I would want to go because he's going to be the lower owned.
The only reason I don't want to say I would be suspect about some of these ownership assumptions because
okay, go ahead. Sorry.
No, what I was going to say is, as I mentioned before, I mean, it's like so easy to get in whoever you want that I think that people are not going to play guys because they're cheap, because I don't think they need to play anybody because they're cheap.
Yeah, and the ownership is accounting for their pricing. I hear you. But I also think that you still, I mean, I can tell you right now, I don't think Correa is going to be as high owned as Wander Franco or Bogarts. What do you have for that? Do you have it as being
yeah, no, I agree. I agree with that. I didn't have Franco that much, but I had Correa and definitely less than Bogarts though.
Yeah, so I that's why even if I'm not right exactly about the percentage of ownership, it's still going to be low enough. I still am going to take the lower owned player when I have all these guys so closely rated, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So, and then the same goes as we transition into outfield. Like, I don't see how Kyle Tucker ends up owned batting seventh today.
Give me all of that.
Yeah, I'll take it all day long. You also have stolen base upside with that.
Yeah.
So I'm into the Kyle Tucker thing. If you were going to stack Tampa Bay, I suggest you play Kiermaier because he will be unowned.
And he will be unsubstituted for.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere because he's the best defensive center fielder. We had an argument last night. I think he's the second best. Well, he's right there with the best center fielder. I'm biased to what Buxton would be if he was healthy all year long. But play Verdugo. How about Verdugo at 3.2? Like, who cares about the price, all that stuff? But this guy is a consistent producer. He'll give you some fantasy points. He doesn't put zeros up there often. You know, the other night, like 14 fantasy points, 15 the night before, like without hitting a home run. If he happens to connect with one, great. But if we're assuming that Verdugo is in fact in the lineup against lefties, which he does hit lefties historically very well, even though this year hasn't been quite as good. You know, everybody's going to play the other Boston outfielders, Renfroe and Kike and everything, and Schwarber. Get Verdugo in there. You know, play Brantley, who will be lower owned because people don't need to go to the value.
That's such a price on Brantley, right?
Yeah, it's crazy, but like nobody needs it, so you know.
Right.
And Brantley and Verdugo, like let's say Sheets today, we only get one home run or two home runs between the both games combined. Guys like Brantley and Verdugo are almost always going to put up 7 to 12. You know what I mean? These are guys who just get hits. They get on base all the time. Yeah, 1 for 12 means absolutely nothing, Brian. I don't care if Correa was 1 for 20 against Lance Lynn. That is not any sort of if that's going to keep people off of him, that's a great 1 for 12.
What was he saying?
He said that Correa is 1 for 12 against Lynn, so it's hard to go there. It's just not a sample size that I could.
Don't forget, it's basically showdown, man. I mean, all that just goes. I mean,
yeah, you just wash it away, 100%.
It's one game, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, Lance Lynn isn't exactly Lance Lynn lately, by the way.
Yeah, what the hell, huh?
Yeah. Hey, Steve, by the way, no problem for doing the show. Always happy to see you guys. Really appreciate like our little, you know, I'm going to try and do this every time I get a chance every day and go live. I don't know. Sheets, I think we should not record and just try to go live. If you can't do it, I'm going to do it because I don't know if the recording people will have time to view it.
You mean for the afternoon slates?
When they start in the afternoon.
I agree with that completely, unless you want to do it first thing in the morning, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
But no, I mean, again, as long as you realize, you know, that during the days, you know, you have like literally 8% of my attention.
Yeah, I understand. That's fine. I can with the baseball 2-game slate. We don't need it's not that much. But Josh says like look, this is not loving or hating BVP. That is way too general a concept. I look at BVP all the time, but usually as a team in terms of how it relates to the pitcher, and then I try and compare pitch types. There is nothing about Lance Lynn that says that Carlos Correa couldn't hit him. And when you want to look at an actual sample size, you usually want 35 plus at bats against somebody. That's really. I mean, it's really that extreme. And if you can have a guy who has no strikeouts and 9 home runs or something in 20 at bats, yeah, that's probably worth looking into. But 1 for 12 doesn't mean anything.
I wonder what did you just come up with 35 or is that like a thing?
Which thing?
What when you're saying how many at bats do you need?
I think 30 plus at bats, you get a better feel for it. But
Okay,
mostly,
that wasn't like based on some study. That's like your feel, right?
that was sort of a general thing I've gotten from talking to everybody over the years, and that's just my take. But there's nothing written in stone. Like if let's just say you have a strikeout pitcher like Scherzer and somebody's faced him 20 times and only has one strikeout or hasn't struck out at all, that's more important to me than whether they've hit a home run or not. You know what I mean? That means they're seeing the ball, and that one thing that he's doing is not getting this guy out. So maybe they line out. I mean, last night was a great example. The Dodgers may have scored one run going into the ninth inning. I think they had like 13 line drives that were either right at somebody or right, somebody made a great play on. It was just like, you can't look at the results on these things. All right. Anyway, I don't know what this is happening with the neat mic thing in the chat. So anyway, so going back to these positions, I just think you're just getting so much extra, by trying to play these other guys, leaving. Of course, you're going to have to leave money on the table for the most part, and trying to, just get different at first base, in my opinion, get different at third base, and get different in the outfield. And you can get different at short too. You're just not going to be quite as different as probably the numbers show with Correa, because he's the only way to really get any kind of difference at short. But I would just try to focus on first base, third base, outfield, and to play the lower ownerships. That's what I'm trying to do. Yeah,
it's just sometimes it's hard to. Here's something, by the way. I mentioned this in Discord, and you guys want. I mean, like in some of these slates, like good ownership projections are just kind of hard to come by sometimes. Mm-hmm. One thing that you could do if you wanted to cheat is take my projections or anybody's projection, honestly, like either mine or Roto Grinders, whoever's projections. And this is kind of silly, but you run it through one of the optimizers at but set it to like for baseball, set it to like a stack, you know what I mean? Like set it for 5-man stacks, 4-man stacks, whatever it is. Set your general and just run like 1,000 lineups. And just see who the highest owned guys are. Like those owners, because that's usually pretty reflective of what ownerships are going to be.
Yep, I think that's a great point, especially for these kind of tournaments.
Yeah.
So I did want to talk about something else real quick that just before we get out of here, I'm going to share my.
I want to ask you about football before we get out of here too.
Okay. Let me share my screen real quick. I just want to get people taking a look at this. The tool here. I have to share my screen. Let me see.
Okay.
Window. Let's see. No, it's not letting me do it like that.
Do a separate video on that.
I'm going to, but I just wanted to include people for right now. So
yeah.
Can you see my screen sheets?
I got other monitors up. Let me just see. Let me get there. I gotta find you. You're like lost. Oh, there you are. Okay.
So
yeah, I got it.
Guys, so here's the thing. So let's say we look up Mookie bets or whatever. We're gonna look up. Here, I didn't click the right thing. Maybe bets is not on here. Here, let's try more. That's a common one. Well, that's interesting. For some reason, there it goes. This just took a minute. My bad. I should give it a minute to search. But this tool is really cool. And look, what you can do is you can go in there and you can find literally everybody who's talked about a player. So that's Moore is a general one, but I'm guessing most of these people are talking about DJ Moore. And you can click on the link and it'll take you exactly to the part of the video where they're talking about him to get everyone's opinions on it. And you can search by all the different ones, whichever site you like, whether it's Zeidenfeld site, whether it's RotoWire, Roto Grinders, RunPure. And it tells you everything throughout the industry that's being talked about. And you can really get a pulse of how, maybe some of your favorite either touts or guys you don't even know of, but they might be talking about somebody. We'll look at another one.
Not only that, but if there's some obscure guy that someone comes up with and you're like, ooh, does anybody else like him? You can put it in there. You could just, like you said, you can get some pretty good takes over there.
Yeah, we had 0 takes on Patton Kizzire, for example, but I think that's because the football we didn't have the what's it called, golf just started. So, but let's use another one for MLB or for NFL. Let's see an obscure one this week. So Josh Reynolds, there's a guy what do people think about Josh Reynolds as a potentially minimum cost guy if we have no AJ Brown and no Julio? So there's only a couple things. Jacksonville could look at once again. There you go. You got a quick little thing from Chris Pennell, and then the Mayo Media Network. And then they talk about Josh Reynolds went out with a knee injury, and then which is what happened. So we have to see what happens even with Reynolds. But looking, that's sort of an off the board one. Westbrook, I'm hoping that it doesn't bring up basketball, but that's another low owned guy who's going to be cheap for Tennessee possibly. And there you go. You can click on anything. I just think I want to encourage people to start using this. It's a really handy tool, and you can just.
I would like to tell you what I would like to encourage people to do, and this is what I was going to talk to you about offline. Whatever it is, we'll talk to you about here. Is what we should do is get a put another Discord channel, call it like Industry Takes.
Okay.
So people can, number one, share stuff, and number two, if anybody has a site that they want us to include in our search tool, right? That we don't know about, just throw it in there, and we'll have Evan include it in the search features. So what we have to do, I didn't even realize this, is that I'm just talking to everybody else that we have to instruct the thing on which websites to scan on YouTube, which YouTube channels, and we don't know all of them. So if you guys think, oh my God, I wish I knew what XYZ was thinking, on YouTube, let us know in the Discord channel we're going to create, and then we will include it we'll have Evan included in the in the search tool.
Yeah, and I think it's a great idea, and I just added the channel, but it'll take you right to the video up the top here. For some reason, it's just a little small right now. There we go. But it'll take you exactly to the part of the video they're talking about the player. I think this is a really handy tool. If I found this when I first was playing DFS, I would have been really, really stoked because it would have saved me a lot, especially for things like golf that I didn't know as well. Anyway, guys, there's no stacks K9 Bronco on 2-game slates for me. I never will look at it like that. I don't know, Sheets. Maybe you disagree.
I mean, obviously, it's better. I mean, it's certainly better. I mean, if you happen to have if it's a dead tie, and one group of 4 are playing on the same team, and another group of 4 are not playing on the same team, I'd certainly rather it, but I wouldn't force it.
Yeah. It's exactly how I feel. But also, I feel like I'm just trying to look at it ownership wise. And if you guys want to hear, I did go through all of my plays real quick. Just the guys to get different. First base, third base, outfield are my favorite positions to get different. Shortstop being 4th. And there's plenty of ways.
Just so you guys know, again, projection for 2-game slates are irrelevant. But I did just push an update with at least having the guys that are playing in the games. And as far as I'm playing everything. I'm playing the 2-game slate. I'm playing both showdowns. And right now I'm pretty chalky with respect to my players. But I got just all kinds of ridiculous money being left on the table in some lineups. That's what I'm going to be doing. I got some lineups 4,500 left on the table, and so that's where my lineups are going to be somewhat unique, I think. So we shall see how it goes. Yep.
By the way, everybody seems to be shooting a million under in golf this week. So
this course, set the record last year for the lowest cut line or something like that. So
we can't get too excited day one. I don't think, unfortunately, because
I can get mad at Patrick Reed for being +1 though. That's pretty.
That's going to be basically. I think it's going to end up at -6. I really do.
Sounds good.
And but my top owned guys are all around 5 and 6 under right now, so I'll be good, except for the guys who haven't started yet.
I've learned my lesson. I'm not looking yet.
So you wanted to talk real quickly about the NFL. Okay.
This is what I want to ask you, because here's you got to be my therapist, not therapist. So here's my situation. So I am going. I have to leave for the airport at 5:30. Okay, and I might not be back in time for the game. How would you? First of all, what is your personal guess on what happens with Chris Carson?
I don't want. I wouldn't want to tell anybody my guess because I don't have a good enough feel for it. I don't care.
I'm not holding you to it.
Yeah, well, because the problem is I just really it's I don't know. I mean, there's not, my guess is not anything that I've found out or heard about anything. It would be just either way. I'm going to play some Alex Collins anyway. That's just my take. So I don't think it's going to matter much for me, and I'll captain Alex Collins even if Chris Carson's playing.
What about the other guy from Seattle?
Then I will play both of them if Chris Carson is out. But if he's not, I will be not into Travis Homer as much.
No, I like the Travis Homer.
No, I like him if you have no Chris Carson. Right. But if he's playing,
aside from that, I mean, just to give you my take, because again, I'm not going to be around for live. For those of you who are listening, I mean, I was going to do a video. I just totally ran out of time. I don't have any funny business in this one. Usually have some funny business. Can I interest you in a little Gerald Everett revenge?
Is he even playing?
Probably.
How far down my list he was, I guess. If that answers my question, if it answers your question. I would just play Deshaun Jackson some, play Van Jefferson some. That's what my recommendations would be.
Okay.
Try to get exposure to the powerful offenses. Both teams have had trouble stopping the run. Play some Darrell, Henderson. Maybe get some Sony Michel into some lineups in case he vultures a touchdown.
Right.
But try to get some of the Rams' third and fourth receivers would be my recommendation, and Alex Collins and Homer if you have no Carson.
Right.
And I think Higbee's at like a funny price point where he'll be owned, but he's not going to be like crazy. I just think I'm trying not to play the Kupp, Woods, and Stafford with these guys because it's pretty easy to do.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to get a little bit different using.
Well, I'll probably try to fade Kupp because I don't want money on. I guess.
Yeah.
It'd be.
Gotcha. Yeah, everything. Russell, JVS Chan dropping in that Russell was going to throw it in 40 times. Has Russell Wilson ever thrown the ball 40 times in a game? I really am trying. I'm genuinely asking. He's a guy who one of the issues with people always have with him is he's a very, very low number of pass attempts per game guy, even when they're going nuts because he'll end up running sometimes. And lately he hasn't thrown more than 32 in a game this season. Now maybe he could this week, but it seems strange because then, after watching what Arizona just did to this Rams defense on the ground, you'd think that would be what they would start with a little bit today. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if Russ throws it 40 times today. I'll tell you what, I still like Russell Wilson no matter what. I prefer him over Stafford today. But I don't know if he's going to really throw it 40 times. We will see.
Are you playing FanDuel baseball today?
I'm not. I didn't really get into it. No, I'm actually not playing that much baseball in general. I didn't really get like anything that I really liked on FanDuel. And my cousins are in town, and we went to the game last night. And then we're going to the football game this weekend. We're going to watch the Rams game tonight. So I just sort of been a little bit on some other stuff and hanging out with catching up. I haven't seen them in a long time, so haven't had a chance to build a FanDuel one. I did look at the pricing though, and I made a mock lineup that I put in like a cheap one. But I didn't play it big. Do you have any strong FanDuel takes?
No, not really.
I can't even decide like the pitching. Like I think you just take the guy who you think is going to be the lowest owned pitcher, which is probably going to be McClanahan, right? Or
yeah.
That's the way I would approach it. The only problem
I honestly don't think any of the pitchers are gonna do that great. I mean, like no, they'll be fine, but I don't. Right. You know what I mean, it just feels like they're pitching 5 innings. It's just that's the way it feels to me. And like you said, if that's what it is, then maybe you're right. Maybe McClanahan and is probably the best play, right? I mean, because he could get, in 5 innings, he can get 10 strikeouts.
Yeah, the longest leash will probably be Lynn and Erod if he's got it going. But I really feel so indifferent on pitching. That's why I'm getting different in those other positions I talked about.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on the idea that Lynn might be just kind of not Lynn right now.
Yeah, I think he really hasn't been himself, and it's a tough matchup on top of it, obviously. So
it's the playoffs. Everybody's a tough matchup.
No, of course, but it's
I get it.
Some teams strike out still. Like Tampa against a righty can still strike out. They just happen to be really good too. You
have any Adam Engel?
I would definitely get some Adam Engel in there.
Yeah.
With the awareness that, well, actually, no, that's weird. It's weird that they're playing. It surprises me that they're playing him over Cesar Hernandez here. I mean, I know different positions, but still, I think it's a really good place to go. Yeah. Anything low owned, I'm going to be a huge fan of today. So
right.
I'm not getting different at second. I'm not getting different at catcher. Everything else, I'm just super on the low ownership. Boy, what an exciting game, man! I haven't been to that many closeout games or whatever, 1 game playoffs.
Oh, that was fun, yeah.
That was a freaking blast. It was nerve-wracking too. I mean, it did not. There was a lot of times where I felt like that game was going to get away from us, and it just didn't quite happen. Thank goodness. All right. Anything else before we get out of here, guys?
Nah, I think we're good.
Guys, thanks for popping in. All my plays are up for NFL. My initial lineup builds on DraftKings and FanDuel for the showdowns for the main slate. I will be expanding on that because those are just my first builds, but you can check them out on my plays on the site, my ownerships. And yeah, let's make some money today. Sheets, you're going to the airport. You're picking up your son, picking up Matt.
Yep.
All right. Well, have a great day. Have a good time with that. And sorry that we aren't going to be able to see the Yankees and Dodgers in the World Series, unfortunately.
We will not.
All right. Good luck, everybody.